Hello guys, and today we're going to be reading My Fair Thomas again. This is chapter 2. I don't remember where I left off technically, so we're just going to we're going to start off as yes, Toad stabbed. Pat, I noticed Toad slightly smiled when he saw it was me. You, Sam, and Gray had brought some people, I said. I think it's those you wanted. What would you like us to do with them? I asked. Ah, that's great news, Toad smiles. Waddle, Waddle, you can send them to the cells for now. I'll go and give them a little visit when I can, Toad said. Oh, and could you get someone to clean this shit up, please? Yes, sir, I said and left. Toad's POV. I've always had a soft spot for Pat and Paul. Not only are they the best soldiers in the army, they're also my parents. They took care of me ever since I was little. And since my mother and father were killed, they did their best. When they told me, I was happy. Not happy because they died, happy because they told me the truth. When I found out I was whole. I'm reading this in like the middle of the night. I'm tired, but I can't go to sleep. I just been terrified at school, so I'm gonna be in trouble soon. They promised to never lie to me, and they kept it. Pat and Paul were really worried after the event of the end. Pat was even nice enough to repair one of my robot arms from the robot. Paul was one who operated my arm, and Pat was the one who attached the robot one in its place. They did a great job. It works just like a normal arm. The only difference is that it's a robot one, and it does not have a feeling my normal arm would have. But hey, it's better than nothing, Pat's POV. It's okay, guys, we'll take it from here, Paul said. I could tell you was about to protest, but I spoke up. Red's orders, I said. All right, fine, you said, and with the other three walked away. Paul and I took care of these three. Let's go, Paul said, and we started walking. Paul had Ed and Matt, and I had Tom. We both knew that Tom's not easiest to deal with, so I took him. 'Cause, yeah, small skip. We got to the cells, and there was one cell that had names on it. They read, Thomas Edward Matthew. I sighed. Really, Paul said. Don't question him, I said, opening the cell. By him and his name's there, I said, pushing Tom in the cell after detaching him. Paul did the same with Ed and Matt. I closed the door and he locked it. So what did he say? Is he coming down here or not? Paul asked. He said when he had time. I said, okay, Paul said. Who was the name of the juvenile are you two talking about? Tom asked. We both turned to look at him. Someone, I said. Uh-huh. I've noticed, Tom said. But who exactly? And I do not want some smart-ass response, Tom said. Right, little dipshit. What's that? Oh, shit. The fuck was that? Okay, let's just continue. Paul, be nice, I said. Just growling. The reason Paul is acting this way is because he usually likes this with everyone. Well, not me and Paul, but still, you know what I mean. And he knows that Tom was the reason Thor looks like he does now. He did not like that Tom hurt his son, and he is the overprotective father. He treats us differently because he cares and loves us, and we love and care about him. Anyways, I said, and looked back at the others. I would like to get to know you three a bit, I said. Why? Ed asked. Why not? You guys are nice people, I said. My name's Patrick, and this is my husband Paul, I said. I was not sure if they were homophobic or not, so that's why I was hesitant. Well, that's cool, I said. We already know who you are, so no need to tell us, Paul said. Okay, Matt said. So is there anything we could talk about, like how life is going? I asked. Probably horrible, I said. What makes you say that? Ed asked. Oh, I do not know. I had gotten the news that some bad shit has happened in your life, Paul said. I chuckled. But that was a while back, I said with a low sigh. With Todd's POV. I sat in my office behind my desk doing work. I really need to get myself a secretary or some shit. I groaned, sitting back into my chair. One that won't make me want to blow their head off, I said, when I was writing short on paper. I heard some shuffling on my desk, and that caused me to snap down at it. I softly smiled when I saw Ringo. She was looking at the picture on my desk. It was one of us, all four of us. And she was especially looking at Ed. You miss him, don't you, girl? My finger's bleeding. Okay, let's continue. I asked, leaning on my desk. Ringo turned her head to look at me. I could tell that she did. I can see it in her eyes. Ringo walked over to me and rubbed her face on my cheek. I chuckled. What do you think about we go pay them a visit later, I asked. Ringo pulled her head up and looked at me. Her vibrant green eyes sparkled. Joy written all over her face. Well, cat face. She licked my cheeks. My cheek. Sorry if I said my cheeks. It was rough, but it still made me happy. I chuckled and pat her head, leaning back into my chair. I'll take that as a yes, I said. Well, go as soon as I finish my walk, I said. Ringo jumped onto my lap and curled up in a ball while purring. I smiled and started petting her again, doing my walk at the same time. Pat's POV. It's been probably a week or so since Todd's friends had been brought here. Paul and I have been keeping them company for the time being. I'm assuming the reason why Todd hasn't been down here yet is from work. Paul, do you think he might be overworking himself again? I asked, out of the blue. Paul looks at me and sighs. Most likely, Paul said. You know he tends to do that a lot, Paul said. Can I ask you to something? It had nothing to do with what you're talking about, Ed said. Sure, Paul and I said, in unison, chuckling slightly at the coincidence. Okay, do you guys have any kids? Ed asked. Just wondering, Ed said quickly. I chuckled. As a matter of fact, yes, we do. Well, sorta, I added. A son to be specific, Paul added. Sorta, Matt spoke. Well, we technically aren't his real nor adopted parents, but we treat him like he's our son, I explained. Oh, nice. What's his name? Ed asked. Oh, you guys know him already, Paul. We do, Matt questioned. Oh, yes, a friend of you guys. I said, a friend of ours? What? Tom said. The only other friend we have is Ed stopped. Oh, dear, Ed said, realizing his eyes going wide slightly. I see you figured it out, Paul said with a chuckle. But if you two still haven't caught on, it's Tord, I said. Oh, Matt said. Tom was just silent. Okay, time to read Capital. Wait, what does it say? Nobody pays attention to me. At least everyone is happy, right? Towards POV. Freaking finally! I said, sitting back into my chair. I sighed and looked down at the sleeping cat on my lap. I smiled and started petting her. She started to purr in her sleep. I chuckled and yawned. Before picking her up in my arms, I stood up and left my office. I looked down at her as I made my way through. The base, her eyes were half lifted, and I smiled. There was no one in the halls, just a few soldiers here and there. Well, that's because it's time for dinner for everyone. All the soldiers are eating. The ones out in the halls are either on their way to eat or they're going back to their rooms. But I did not usually bother them. It's their time to relax and take a break. The one thing I don't do, even Pat and Paul tell me to take breaks, but I refuse. They usually have to force me to. I got to the cells and made my way to the guy's cell. When I got there, Pat and Paul were both sitting on the ground talking to them, I assume. Pat, Paul, I said. What you two doing here? I asked. They both looked at me and immediately got up. We're just talking to Edna and Tom, so Pat said. I chuckled. I see, I said. But I do suggest that you two go on and eat. Oh shit, that's true, Pat said. Let's go, Pat said. Before Paul was dragged away, he sighed. Thanks for reminding us, so no problem, I said. Ooh, family meeting now, is it? Said a guy. His name is Serason, if I remember correctly. I found. Shut it, will ya? I ordered. I hear him scoff. I walked to the front of the cell, since I was not in view. Hello, old friends, I smoked with a smoke, their eyes wide in shock. Now, Ed, I said, come here, I ordered. He hesitated, but slowly walked over to me. It looked like Tom was about to protest, but he didn't. In the corner of my eye, I noticed Ringo poke her head up. I set her on the ground, and she ran over to Ed. Ringo, Ed said, picking her up and hugging her. How touching. First we have a family meeting, and now we got ourselves a friend reunion. Grayson said. I found. What the fuck did I just say? I said, trying to keep calm. Oh, my bad. I wasn't listening, Grayson said with a smirk. I turned around to look at him. I really am trying to keep my calm here, but your ass is making it quite difficult, I groaned. And what are you going to do about it? Grayson asked, with a stupid grin on his face. I chuckled and walked over to him. Oh, did you forget I'm the one who decides what happens to your ass? I growled, placing my robot hand on one of the balls, making a quick clack sound. Grayson stepped back from the balls. He doesn't look scared, but I can tell otherwise. I chuckled again. Scared, I asked. He was silent. I'll take that as a yes, I smoked. I took my hand off of the ball I was holding onto and crossed my arms behind my back, having an emotionless expression. I've had enough of your shit, so I'll be getting someone to come and get you later, was all I said before walking off, going back to my office. Tom's POV. I'm so confused. What the fuck just happened? How the fuck is that communist even alive? And he looks like shit, man. Literally. But what confuses me is he this so-called red leader. Someone chuckled brought me back into reality. I see that you three are confused, the guy Toad was talking to just a few seconds ago. We all look at him. It also seems like Red has a connection with you three. Am I correct? He asked. Red? Who's Red? I asked. The guy who just left. He said, You mean Toad? Ed said. So that's his name, he said. Anyways, you guys are confused on what's happening right now, he asked. He stayed silent. I could clear some things out for you, he said. But first, how did you know we were involved with that coming? I asked. Oh, I see. You're the one that hates him, he chuckled. Where Red's not usually this nice with other prisoners, he said, and I see he's just giving you that cat. You knew what its name was, and I've always also noticed him with it before, he said. I have seen it walking around the cells, but one of his soldiers or him himself would take it back to wherever he takes it, he said. Ringo? He's had her for that long? I'd asked. I guess you can say so, he said. But indeed, I was here longer than Ringo, he said. Her name was, he said. Whoa, Ed said out of shock. He's a heartless bastard, he grumbled. I don't even think that he has a soul. Definitely has anger issues, he added. I chuckled. Haha, someone who agrees with me, I said. Tom, shut it, Ed said, placing Ringo on the ground. I scoffed and crossed my arms. Do you have any idea why he acts like how he does now? Ed asked. No, he said. No one knows what happened to him. The only people who know him well is Pat and Paul, he said. Ed was about to say something, but he was cut off. Grayson, a voice said. The man looked over to the side. What? He grumbled. You're coming with us, one of the soldiers said. The other opened the cell door and grabbed his arm, then dragging him off somewhere. The one who spoke closed the cell door and looked at us. We'll be back for you, he pointed at me, then walked off. Wait, what? I stood there confused. Here's a drawing I made of Toad's uniform. Toad Lawrence. Hi? Oh god, what is that? This shit today. It's on honking in Morse code. Honking in Morse code. Swear to God, if they do that again, I'm calling 911. That was a really good picture. I love the drawings she makes. I'm so alone. Capital. No, we're just gonna say 4 or 5 or 6 every time it says a number, okay? We're not gonna actually say it because it's too confusing for me to pronounce, okay? Tom's POV. I was getting more and more nervous as time went on. More and more scared of what's going to happen to me. That guy just left without another word. Why does he want to see me? That's what I would be talking like, bro. And what is he going to do to me? Time skip. The guy came back and walked over to the cell we're in. I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at what I did earlier. I slapped a little kid. The kid dissolved. He threw sticks and rocks at me in the back. My back hurts now. The cell we're in. You come here, he said, pointing to me. I just stood there, not moving. He groaned and opened the cell and walked over to me. Before I could react, he grabbed my arm and dragged me out of the cell. Or, of course, closing the door behind him. I was able to look at the guy before being dragged away. They were frozen in shock. When they were out of view, I looked back at the guy. Where are you taking me? I groaned, attempting to pull my arm away, but to no avail. He was silent as he dragged me through the halls of this large, abnormally building, passing men and sometimes a few women all wearing the same uniforms. Some would look at us, then continue whatever they were doing. The last thing I heard was all too familiar Norwegian accent, in a sort of panicked tone, before everything went black. Shoot! Towards POV. Tom was brought to the infirmary. I assumed he had fainted. Well, that's what it seems like. I told Wens off after he got Tom. Yes, Wens. Don't ask the names I make up. It was the first thing that came to mind, so back off, okay? I'm curious of what happened to him, though. He's never fainted before. Well, not that I know of. I've been debating whether I should tell Ed and Matt about this or not. They are his friends, so maybe telling them will not go so well. I do not know anymore. I'm currently sitting outside of Tom's room. Okay, I might be worried about him just a little. The nurse came back holding a clipboard in her hands. Red Leader? Lexi asked. I stood up. Yes, I said. I have good news and bad news. Lexi said. All right, tell me the good news, I said. Well, Thomas is just fine. He just faded, Lexi said. But the bad news is he has cancer. More especially eye cancer. We ran some tests, and that was the result. We do not know when it had happened, but we predicted he had around a year left, Lexi said, letting out a sad sigh at the end. I was shocked. How? How did this happen to him? Thank you, I said. Does Thomas know? I asked. Yes, sir. He was informed as soon as we got the news, Lexi said. I would like to get some of the lab workers try and find some cure. I do not care how hard it is. I want it to be done, I ordered. Yes, sir. Right away, Lexi said. Dismissed, I said. Lexi nodded, then she was off. I let out a sigh and walked over to Tom's. Sorry, I had my hair in a weird fashion thing, so I just had it. I let out a sigh and walked over to Tom's room, knocking on the door before entering. Tom was sitting on the bed staring at his legs, which were covered by a baby blue blanket. I closed the door and cleared my throat, catching his attention. He snapped his head up at me. How are you feeling? I said, walking over to him. I do not know. You tell me, he spat out. I somewhat felt hurt from that. Look, Tom, can we try and get along, I asked. I do not want to be fighting with you forever, I said. I sighed. Sitting on the end of the bed, he said, whatever that says, okay? And why would I? He said. You literally had taken us from our home and thrown us in jail, Tom started. I said, well, have you considered that I also have work to do, and I don't have time to deal with you giving me shit, I said, standing up. I could have taken you here way sooner, I said, with a serious tone. I crossed my arms behind my back, having my back facing him. Do you really think I forgot about what you did? Tom asked. More importantly, did you forget? Tom asked. I looked down at my robot hand and clenched it into a fist, pulling it into my chest with my other hand. I looked straight in front of me, not wanting to face Tom at the moment. You should rest for the time being. was all I had said, and with that, I left him alone, going back to my office to do whatever I need to. There's probably nothing left to do. But then, again, I always get piled up by work. Time skippo, my bippo. What a stupid thing I said. I'm currently sitting at my desk in my office doing nothing. That's fun, right? I find it really fun. Don't you agree? I sighed and got up from my seat. Maybe I should get Tom's uniform ready. He's going to be my new secretary after all. I left my office and took out my radio. Patrick, Paul, I would like you to meet me at my office, I said. Almost instinctively, they answered yes, so at the same time. I stood by the door of my office, arms crossed behind my back, posture straight and tall. A few minutes passed. Soon Pat and Paul had both arrived. You want us, sir? Paul asked. I stood up. I stood by the door of my office, arms crossed behind my back, posture. Wait. Yes. I would like for one of you to escort Thomas to his new room, I said, and as for the other one of you, I would like you to get Ed and Matt and bring them to their room. I turned to look at them. Thomas will have his own room by himself. Ed and Matt will share if they want. If not, then give them their own room. I said, yes, sir. Pat and Paul at the same time. Good, I said. Thomas is in the infirmary, by the way, I said. Dismissed, I said. And with that, they went off. Bye-bye. I need to grab a white tissue and just float it in the air and say bye-bye. Shit, I'm watching too much Tom and Jerry. And this is Chapter 5. Let's read this. Who is the person with no life? Me. It's me. It kind of reminds me of me. It's been 27 and 42, 43, 44, so we're just going to read this last chapter, and then I'm going to probably stop it from here, and I will upload a video as soon as I can, okay? Capital... Shit, I was not going to... Tom's POV. Toad just left. He didn't even answer my question. It was a simple yes or no question. Like, come on, my thoughts were interrupted by the door opening. I looked over to see Pat. I sat up in my bed. Hello, I asked. Hello, Tom. Are you feeling better? Pat asked. I guess. I said. On my jaw. Well then, you may come with me, Pat said, walking over to me. He held out his hand. I hesitated, but took it. He helped me up. Go where? I asked. Pat smiled. To your new room. Shoot, I messed up on saying that. Pat said, now come on, he said, before dragging me to wherever this new room was. Paul POV. I made it to the cell Ed and Matt were in. They were sitting on the ground playing with Ringo. I cleared my throat, catching their attention. They both looked at me. Oh, hey, Paul, Ed said. Hello, I said. Red Leader has requested for you two to be escorted to your rooms, I said, opening the door. Ed and Matt got up. Ed had Ringo in his arms as they both walked over to the door. Why do you call Toad Red Leader? Didn't you say he's your son? Ed asked. I chuckled. Well, he is, but we would prefer to be called Red Leader or Sir around other soldiers, I said. Of course, Pat and I are exceptions, and sometimes we forget. All other soldiers know not to call him by his first name. Some don't even know what his real name is. But since you guys know him and all his friends, he'll most likely just let you three off the hook, I said. Now let's go to your rooms. I sound like one of those people in those game shows. I said another for the questions I asked as I walked. I heard the quick footsteps from the other two behind me, and behind me, the two trying to keep up and stand to the left of me. How are these rooms going to work? Matt asked. Well, we will have Tom set in his own room. I said, as for you two, you get to choose. Would you like to have one room together or one for yourselves? I said. It's your choice, I finished. This is like, do you want the red pill or the blue pill? Like one of the, like that movie. I don't remember what it was called. It's your choice, I finished. They were silent for a few seconds. Before answering, we would like to share a room, Ed said. All right then, together it'll be, I said. Third person POV. Once they got to their rooms, Paul, Ed, and Matt had met up with Pat. Hey Pat, did you get Tom? Paul asked. Yeah, and I see you have Ed and Matt, Pat said. Ed and Matt gave a smile and waved. Hi, Pat greeted them. Your rooms are over here, Pat said, walking over to the door. He opened it. Tom's room is right there if you like to go and see him, Pat said, pointing at Tom's door. But at the moment would not be the best time to visit him, Pat said, putting his posture straight. What, why? Ed asked. Doctor said he should get some rest, and so did Red. Pat said, now you two get settled in. Pat said, as for us, Paul and I have work to attend. Pat said, we'll come visit if we can, or Red will, Pat said. And with that, the two soldiers had left the two levels to get settled in and used to their new room. Tom's POV. I saw on the side of my new bed. I'm still bummed that I have cancer. A year, I mumbled to myself. I let out a heavy sigh, putting my head into my hands. How am I going to tell Ed and Matt about this? I mumbled. Then I remembered this was going to happen eventually. My future self even had that weird goggle thingy he was wearing. He even said he had cancer from that laser. But the question is, where'd I get them from? And who made them? My thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. Who's there? I asked. It's Pat and Paul. May we come in? Paul asked. I sighed. Come on in. I said. The two entered. Hey, Tom, how are you feeling? Pat asked. Good, I guess. I said. Pat smiled. Well, that's good, Pat said. We both know you're still trying to process the news, Pat said, walking over to me. He sat down next to me. Paul sat on the other side of me. Would you like to see Ed and Matt? Paul asked. Well, I have nothing better to do, I said. Paul chuckled. Well, you can rest for once, but if you don't want to rest, you can go see Ed and Matt. Their room is next to yours, to the left, Paul said. If you have any problems or you need help from one of us, use this. Pat handed me a radio. I instantly took it. Okay? I said, there are different lines, as in one for you can speak to Red Leader. Only him and Pat and Paul and I have the line, other than some soldiers who are in high enough rank. And this other line is one to talk to the soldiers, Pat explained. As for the last one, is a line that'll connect everyone, Pat said. There is a way you can speak to one person at a time, Paul adds. Person at a time, Paul adds. I don't want to speak with that communist, I said. Paul and Pat chuckled. I would have expected you to say that. Paul said, but it's just good that you know, Paul added, standing up. Well, be going. If you want to ask any questions, call us and we'll see if we can come over, Pat said. I nodded, then smiled. Before leaving, I honestly wanted to leave this place. Yet something inside me said it was safe to stay. I shoved the radio into my hoodie pocket, just in case. $35, okay. I need some sleep, but I'm not going to do this until I finish this chapter, and then I'll leave, okay? Well, since I have nothing better to do, I can go see what Ed and Matt are doing. I got up from the bed and left my room, going to the one next to it. Knocking first, of course. Okay, and that was all, and oh shit, I should... Boop. Okay. And we're gonna end this and see if it sucks. Okay. And well, I would like to say bye, have a good day or night. And remember, you're loved no matter what you are and who you are. Okay? Bye!